Hey guys, welcome back. In a previous booster opening, I opened up the 4 prize packs that I got from Friday Night Magic on October 24th, I think. Yeah. And I mentioned that I would make a video going through the deck that I built that won that Friday Night Magic, and here it is. As you can see, it's Halloween. Went with the orange and black sleeves, but at any rate, I'll go through the creatures, and then I'll go through the spells, and then I'll go through the lands. So this ended up being an Obson deck. Early on, I drafted a white-black card that was pretty good, and it kind of drew me into Mardu, but then, as I would later find out, there was another person that drafted a Mardu Ascendancy, and they were pushing Mardu colors very, very hard because of it. So a lot of the red cards that I started picking up stopped coming back around, so I was getting strong green signals, so I went from black, white, red to black, white, green. So first we'll start with the 1-drops. I started off with a Disowned Ancestor and a Mardu Hateblade. Both of them performed pretty well. I definitely got a little bit more respect for Mardu Hateblade. People hate attacking into it. I still think the 1-mana Death Touch, the black, I can't remember, the Ruthless Ripper, is strictly better than the Mardu Hateblade, but Mardu Hateblade certainly does serve a purpose. If that's the only one you can get. The Disowned Ancestor, it's as good as always. It's harder to attack into. 0/4. It's got a big butt. It can block morphs relatively easily. Onto the 2-drops, which I had a ton of. We have Archer's Parapet. This functions very similarly to Disowned Ancestor. You know, it's a defender, but it still is able to hit your opponent if you have the extra mana to do so, and I did several times. I think in one game this was good for about 5 damage, which a 0/5, it blocked quite often. It was doing damage. It definitely pulled its weight. The mainstay of the deck, I think, were 3 Mardu Skull Hunters. I love this card. It's really, really good. It does present some interesting situations when you have a Mardu Skull Hunter as your only turn 2 play, and you have to kind of evaluate, do I play the Mardu Skull Hunter on turn 2, or do I wait until turn 3, play something else, attack, and then, you know, put down the Mardu Skull Hunter to get the extra value of your opponent discarding a card. It's really tough. Most of the time I waited, because I really want, when I pick up Mardu Skull Hunter, a 2/1 for 2 mana is okay. It's not great. I'm really picking up Mardu Skull Hunter for the body and its additional raid mechanic. And if I can't get that raid mechanic, then I'm really not happy with Mardu Skull Hunter. So typically I will wait and try to get the extra value out of Mardu Skull Hunter. But this card did a lot of work, especially when it came down in multiples in a single game. And with 3 of them, I definitely got them quite often. We next go to Einok Bonkin. This was just your standard 2/1 for 2 mana. I didn't outlast it a whole lot, but when I did, it was relatively powerful. It didn't do a whole lot of work for me, but with 2 of them, it certainly did come up reasonably often. It wasn't the superstar that the Skull Hunter was, though. We have a Timber Charger. This is a card that I really like. 2 mana for a 3/1. It's basically a Resco Swiftclaw in green. It's not bad. You can play it as a morph, as a 2/2. Rarely do I do that. I usually just play it as a 3/1, which does me just fine. It trades up relatively well. Even if your opponent has Secret Plans, which gives all your morph creatures extra toughness, it can still trade up for those. But hitting this on turn 2 can really do some damage, because I noticed that a lot of people have slower decks. They may not always have a turn 3 morph. Sometimes my opponents were going into turn 4, turn 5 without any real strong plays. And when you're able to take advantage of that with Timber Charger doing 3, 6, 9 damage, it becomes a pretty powerful card. So I was very happy with Timber Charger. Highland Game wasn't bad. It's a 2/1 for 2 again. It gives you a little bit of life when it dies, and it trades up for a morph. I really like it. Wasn't a superstar, but it certainly was a workhorse, I think. Obson Falconer. This is consistently one of my favorite cards. Put a couple counters on something and then just attack with it, and don't really have to worry about it as long as your opponent doesn't have any flyers. So I really like the Obson Falconer. I always do. It's always an extremely good card. So those were all the 2-drops. The 3-drops, and at least 2 of the cards, I think 3 Alpine Grizzlies were passed to me, although I tried to go heavy. I tried to go in red, so I didn't pick up 1. But when the other 2 came around, I said, okay, someone's trying to push me into green. So I went into green. 2 Alpine Grizzlies. These were superstars in the deck. A 4/2 for 3 mana is just fantastic. Again, the same thing with the Timber Charger. When your opponents, when you're facing people with slower decks as I did, and as I think many people face in this format, a 3 mana 4/2 that isn't answered right away can do a whole lot of damage. So I really like the Alpine Grizzly. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite creatures. Longshot Squad, I had 2 of them. It's always a good creature. It's got a decent body, and it can just get bigger from there, especially if your opponent doesn't have an answer ready for it and they're not really threatening you on the board. So I really like the Longshot Squad. It didn't do a whole lot for me, but I still liked it. And obviously that's a 4-drop, so we're into the 4-drops now. For the other 4-drops, I had Salt Road Patrol and Bellowing Saddlebrute. Salt Road Patrol wasn't bad. It's a big body that's hard to get through. It was able to block several occasions, and I'm glad that I had it. Bellowing Saddlebrute, I think, only came into play on 1 occasion. On that 1 occasion, though, it pretty much was the card that made my opponent go, yeah, I'm not going to win this. So, Bellowing Saddlebrute, a 4-mana 4/5 is really fantastic. And I'm tempted to even say that even if you have to pay the 4 life for it, as long as you're not in huge trouble, that's also not really all that bad. So, it's a strong creature. I was very grateful to have it. Now we're towards the end of the creatures. I had 5 mana. I took a Meandering Tower Shell. I regretted taking this creature. It's really big. I figured at the very least, it's kind of a confusing creature to have. At the very least, I wanted to play it and then use it as a blocker. But it has so many weird interactions. At one point, my opponent tried to cast Act of Treason on it, and he wanted to know what would happen. We both kind of said, I don't really know, and we didn't really have a judge at our store, but we just assumed that since Act of Treason ended, when it comes back in, it wouldn't have Act of Treason on it, that it would just come back to me. So he used it on another creature instead. I was curious about this. I wasn't sure if that's how it would work, so I looked it up after the turn. I came to find out that Meandering Tower Shell, due to the rules text on it, where it says it comes back under your control, if someone uses an Act of Treason effect on Meandering Tower Shell, that person effectively just stole Meandering Tower Shell for the rest of the game, because it comes back under their control. Even if Meandering Tower Shell attacks, it's still under the control of the other person. So it was kind of unfortunate for my opponent, and I felt bad after the fact, but we really didn't know what it was. But this is one of those cards where several were introduced in Khans of Tarkir, where the rules text just got kind of weird. It definitely has some strange interactions, but just know that if you're going to play Meandering Tower Shell, and I probably won't in the future, it does have some weird interactions, like with Act of Treason. So if you think your opponent has Act of Treason in their hand, you may not want to play Meandering Tower Shell, because you may just end up giving them a 5/9 for little to no cost. So keep that in mind. Obs Guide is strong as always. I think I undervalued this card a little bit, but the more I play it, the more I like it. You just have to be smart when you block with it and when you choose to flip it. I think I was, and it worked out very, very well for me. I think it took me up to like 32 life at one point, so really, really powerful. So that's it for all the creatures. I can go through those real quick. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's 19 creatures total. Then we go into the spells. I went creature heavy and spell light. We have a suspension field. Pretty much speaks for itself. There's a lot of stuff in this format with three toughness or more, and suspension field is not very expensive and does a very good job. Feat of Resistance. This was an all-star. It saved me quite often. Protected creatures from removal and was just fantastic. At one point, my opponent threw a debilitating injury, I think, on my Obs Guide, which turned it into a 2/2. To end the game, I was able to cast Feat of Resistance on my Obs Guide, declaring black, knocking that off, preventing him from blocking with his black creature, and then ending the game. Feat of Resistance is just such a good card that, if I see it in draft, I have to seriously have a very good card to pass that. It just really is good, and the more I play it, the more I like it. Savage Punch. This didn't do a whole lot for me. I don't think it came up that often, and unfortunately, I took it, I played it, and I wasn't really thinking straight with that, I think. I didn't have a whole lot of creatures in my deck that had the ability to proc Ferocious, at least not when I also had Savage Punch. I think it may have come into play at one point in the game, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me. Utter End. This was my pack 1 pick 1. 2 mana white black, exile target non-land permanent. It's a very good card. It's ridiculously good, and it helped end the game a couple times. So if I see this again, I'll definitely pick it up. It just is a good card, and that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. It's basically just removal for anything you want. Murderous Cut basically is removal. I think everyone knows how valuable this card is. It definitely came into play a couple times, and it was very good. Obviously, removal is prized very highly for a reason, and that card is no different. And that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spells. And then we get to the land base. I took a Jungle Hollow and a Scoured Barrens for dual lands. And then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forests, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plains, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swamps. And I didn't have mana issues at all the entire night. I believe I mulliganed one time, and the hand that I got back was pretty good. So I was pretty happy with how all of that went. At any rate, guys, that's it for my deck. As I said, it won Friday Night Magic, at least for my pod. I went 6-1. I won all 3 rounds, and I had a really great time. Won 4 packs. You saw the video. If you haven't, the video's up where I opened those. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you think. If you played a Friday Night Magic, let me know in the comments below what you played and why you played it, how you drafted, if you had a good time, and everything that happened. But for now, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.